Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Empowered Youth. If you are new, my name is Eli Graves, and I am the host of this podcast channel. If you like what you have been listening to, you can always follow me on the app you are listening to, and you can also follow me on my Instagram account, which is eli.graves061310. I also have an Instagram account for this podcast, which is called Empowered Youth 109. On today's episode, we will be talking about having courage. First off, I want to start off by asking, have you ever had courage in the midst of storms? Or have you ever felt like there wasn't any courage to have? I will be listing some people from the Bible that had to have courage in the hardest times. These people could be called heroic, but the only reason they were heroic was because of God, and each of these people had to have courage that came from God. They could not have gotten courage out of thin air. But first off, let's start off with David. David was a young shepherd, short in stature, brave but slim, but ultimately had the faith of God. David's father Jesse had 3 older sons, which also meant that David had 3 older brothers, but maybe more. David's brothers went into battle against Goliath. Now just remember that Goliath had been tormenting them for 40 days, which tormenting comes from Satan. But anyway, one day Jesse sent David with a basket with food for his brothers, and also some food for the officers who sent them in the camp. Jesse also said to bring something back. They basically said they are okay. So Jesse wanted David to bring something back that confirmed that his brothers were okay. But anyways, the next morning, David had another shepherd tend to his sheep, so he could go give his brothers the food. The soldiers were going out to their battle positions just as David arrived. The soldiers began shouting their war cry. The Israelites and Philistines were lined up and ready for battle. David left the food with the man who kept the supplies. Then he ran to the place where the Israelite soldiers were and asked about his brothers. While David was talking with his brothers, the Philistine champion fighter came out from the Philistine army. This was Goliath, the Philistine from Gath. Goliath shouted things against Israel as usual. David heard what he said. The Israelite soldiers saw Goliath and ran away. They were all afraid of him. But David was like, "Let me fight him." All the soldiers laughed at him, even mocked him. Then later King Saul let David put some armor on to see how it fit. David was like, "I don't want to wear this. I can't wear this." So he went to battle Goliath with no armor on. David later went to a stream to find 5 smooth rocks by the stream to use to fight Goliath. In 1 Samuel 17:45-46, it says David said to the Philistine, "You come to me using sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord all-powerful, the God of the armies of Israel, and he is all-powerful." It also says, "You have said bad things about him. Today the Lord will let me defeat you." So with courage and passion from God where he needed it the most, which is in the midst of the battle, he swung his sling and the rock knocked him in the forehead. Then he fell over and died. But after that, there was some very gory stuff if you want to read the rest of it for all you gory seeking people. But David really needed courage because his storms were huge. which shows that God can help you through anything. God is certainly all powerful, and it's nice to think that He can give you the courage and wisdom and clarity even in your roughest seas. Speaking of seas, next we will talk about Jonah, which in this story it shows even if you disobey God, He is so loving that He will give you courage even after you ignore Him. Our God is amazing because He has some patience. Patience that none of us could ever possibly have. But when I said speaking of seas, you'll see what I'm talking about. One day, God called Jonah to Nineveh to preach against their wicked ways so their city didn't have to get destroyed. What a loving God, right? But Jonah was too scared to go preach against them. So he got on a boat to head the opposite direction to Tarshish. That word gets me every time. I cannot say it right. It's Tarshish, which is spelled Tarsish. Just if you were wondering, it's a tricky word, so please forgive me. So David got on the boat to get as far away as he could, but one night there came this huge storm, which was so bad that the sailors were throwing off luggage and cargo. But anyway, it got so bad that they were like, everyone pray to your own God, maybe one of them will do something about it. And Jonah was like, it's me, hello, I'm the problem. And so the sailors decided to throw him overboard, which later a big whale came to scoop him up into his belly. It may have been pleasant to the whale since he got some food, but for sure was not pleasant to Jonah, because he was in the belly of a whale that smelled rotten, and he lived in the belly of it for 3 days and 3 nights. Then later he repented, and coincidentally, it later spit him back into Nineveh, and he went and preached the gospel. You know, what if someone who, for example, had stolen an airplane, then later crashed the airplane, but somehow survived, had met Jonah saying, let's see who has the best, most interesting story? I would say Jonah would have because, he got swallowed by a whale. I mean, it's impressive because he not only survived the stomach acid of the whale, but also because he didn't die of losing his sanity. Man, that's crazy, but I will tell you one thing for certain. God is amazing and all powerful. I'd say if Jonah never went to Nineveh, then that would change all of humanity and possibly even how we function. One change could create a whole opposite situation. That's why God needed him to go to Nineveh. But now, moving on to the last but not least, one of my stories about me. Now, that may surprise you, but I don't like talking about myself. But let me tell you what God has done in my life and for me. So, if you didn't know, we do a youth Sunday at my church, and that is where every fifth Sunday of the month, the youth takes over of that service. I preach on those Sundays as well, not to brag on myself, but I know that every time I get up there, I'm like, God, I need some courage and no anxiety. I'm like, Father, I'm preaching for you. Could you at least take away all my anxiety? It's every time I walk up there, my heart feels like it's about to take off into outer space. No, not joking either. Like, it pounds bad. Like, out of my chest bad. But I know one thing for certain. Right when I start preaching the gospel, God takes it all away. Not because He can, but because it's needed. Just like He needed Jonah to go to Nineveh. Because if I have that anxiety, I'm going to be nervous and there's a chance that I won't be able to go up there with what I have, which is nothing. I need courage. I need something like courage. But all credit goes to the Lord. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of needing faith as well. You need faith to have courage. I remember this one Bible story. It's where this lady with bad blood, she is in this crowd and she's sick and is needing healing. But she goes up to Jesus and she doesn't even ask to be healed. She just said, "If I can just touch the hem of his garment, I'll be healed." So she went up to him and she touched the hem of his garment. And she was all of a sudden healed. Jesus said, "Who touched me?" And the lady said, "I did." And Jesus was like, "It's not the hem of my garment that healed you. It's the faith that you had." You know, when you're in a storm, you need to have faith like that lady did in order to get across the storm you are facing. You need to have faith that God will grant you courage and wisdom and clarity. Every night, I try to pray for wisdom and clarity. There's no telling what I'm going to be waking up to that next day. There may be this person that gets on my nerves, and I really need wisdom. I really need clarity to speak to them. But when I'm speaking them, I need to also have courage. But anyway, thank you for listening. And thank you, Jesus, for everything you've done for me. If you want to follow me, you can, which will allow you to get updated when I post more podcasts. Also, speaking of following me, don't forget to check out my Instagram account and the Instagram account dedicated to this podcast specifically, which will allow you to get updated on when I make more podcasts so you can see what all God has done. Through the Instagram account dedicated to this podcast, please DM me any prayer requests or any podcast ideas you may have or want to hear. If you want to hear any more podcasts, if you have any ideas on podcasts, please DM me. If you would like to be in a podcast, though it is not guaranteed you will be able to, I'll try to see if I can get you in. You can also DM me. But I hope to see you here the next time. God bless you. I'm praying for you. It's Eli, and I'm out. Peace.